Alright, so you've probably seen some hype around Feainon lately, and for good reason. This character is looking like one of the most unique and mechanically rich units Honkai Star Rail has ever dropped. And today, I want to walk you through his full kit, not just explaining what each skill does, but breaking it down with context, insights, and a few thoughts on how he might actually play in practice. If you want to save up to 25% on the Anaxa and Dr. Ratio banners, check out lootbar.gg. Here, I can buy 3,280 Wuneric shards for $40, while it costs $50 in-game. I just enter my UID and select a server. Since every top-up goes through the in-game channel, I received double the Oniric shards for my first purchase and saved $10. Besides Honkai, you can also top up in Genshin, and Lootbar has over 50,000 satisfied users. I regularly use Lootbar for my giveaways, so I can personally recommend it. Use my link in the description for an additional 10% discount. So let's start simple. Feainon is a physical-type character, and his whole gimmick revolves around this memory mechanic and a transformation state called the Chronos Ruin Iron Tomb. Now, I know that sounds like a heavy metal album, but trust me, it's more than just a cool name. His basic attack is exactly what you'd expect. It deals physical damage to a single target and gives you 1 point of memory. It's straightforward but important because building memory is kind of the core loop of this kit. His skill steps things up. You deal physical damage to a single target and also hit adjacent enemies, and you gain 2 points of memory this time. So already you're building up pretty quickly, especially if you're pairing him with supports that can trigger his talent. Speaking of talent, this is where things start getting spicy. Whenever an ally targets Feainon with an ability that applies a buff, so think of healers, shielders, or anyone handing out buffs, Feainon gains 1 memory. Also, whenever he gets hit, that's another memory. There's a 15-point cap, and every time you gain 1, Feainon gets a boost to his critical damage for 2 turns. The scaling is still being finalized, but the idea here is momentum. The more active the team is around him, the faster he charges up. And once he reaches 12 memory points, that's when the real show begins. His ultimate becomes available. This isn't your standard damage nuke. It transforms Feainon into something else entirely and activates the Chronos Ruin Iron Tomb. And yes, the transformation has a full-on battlefield effect. Let me break it down. When he activates this, he spends 12 memory points and enters the territory. He transforms. No word yet on the official visual design, but it's probably going to be badass. He gains 4 ruin marks, which we'll get into in a second. From this point on, he becomes crowd control immune, gets a big ATK increase, gets more max HP, and reduces damage taken. Again, we don't have the exact percentages locked down yet, but based on past characters like Jingliu and Blade, these kinds of buffs can be massive. On top of that, all his skills now apply extra toughness damage, so he'll shred enemy shields faster, and all self-buffs last 1 turn longer. That's actually a pretty big deal, because it means his own temporary effects, like critical damage or healing, don't drop off as quickly. Now here's the twist. While in the territory, all allies leave the field. It's just Feainon. He takes over completely. In return, all enemies get a physical weakness, even if they didn't have it before. That is huge for breaking shields and making sure his damage sticks. He also gets 8 special turns inserted into the action order. That means he'll be taking action after action, without interruption from enemy turns or ally turns. It's like the whole battlefield pauses and lets Feainon go to town. And during these special turns, buff and debuff durations don't tick down. So whatever state he's in, he keeps it. Once those 8 turns are up, or earlier if his HP drops below a certain percentage, he automatically exits the territory and his allies return to battle. Everyone gets a speed buff for 1 turn when they come back, which helps them catch up in the action order. And if his HP falls below the threshold early, the transformation ends with a slightly weaker ultimate, so timing and survival really matter. Now let's talk about the real meat of the territory mode, the enhanced skills. His enhanced basic attack, or Q, hits one target, and splashes onto adjacent enemies. It also gives you 2 ruin marks, and these marks replace skill points while you're transformed. That means everything he does in this mode revolves around managing ruin instead of skill points, which fits the whole theme of this being a separate, self-contained state. His enhanced skill 1. This is a wild one. It instantly forces all enemies to act. It gives you ruin marks based on how many enemies you force to act, heals Feainon based on his max HP, and dispels all debuffs. Then he enters a counter stance until his next special turn, and when enemies attack him, he retaliates with physical damage to all enemies. That counter counts as skill damage too, which could have synergy with things like gear that buffs skill DMG. Then we've got enhanced skill 2, which is the big spender. You can consume up to 4 ruin marks. For every mark spent, he deals 4 hits of bouncing physical damage, meaning it jumps between enemies. If you go all in with 4 marks, you also get an extra hit that spreads physical damage across all enemies. This could be a boss buster or an AoE clear tool, depending on how you use it. And his enhanced ultimate? That's the closer. On the final special turn, it auto-triggers dealing big AoE physical damage shared among all enemies. If his HP drops too low before that, it'll trigger early, but at reduced damage. So again, you're encouraged to survive through the full cycle if you want max value. Outside of combat, his technique gives your team +3 max technique points and lets you instantly slay all basic enemies in range, like Acheron's. Against elite enemies, all allies recover some energy when the battle starts, and when Feainon enters his territory for the first time, he gets 2 extra ruin marks to get rolling faster. His traces also reward good synergy. The first one gives him an ATK buff when he enters battle or enters the territory, and it stacks up to twice. The second one increases his damage after receiving healing or shields from allies. And the third one lets him gain memory when allies regenerate energy for him once per turn. That alone makes him work well with units that provide energy regen. Now, let's touch on Eidolons. His first Eidolon gives him physical resistance penetration while transformed, and after exiting, all allies recover energy, which is going to be a big deal in fast teams. His second Eidolon boosts his damage while transformed and gives him an extra turn after enhanced skill 2 if you use all 4 ruin marks. That one is kind of nuts. Chaining actions mid-territory means even more value per cycle. His fourth Eidolon buffs the counter damage on enhanced skill 1, again, turning defense into offense. And the sixth one is spicy. After each attack during territory mode, he deals bonus true damage based on the total damage dealt, targeting the enemy with the highest HP. Then, when he exits territory, he regains some memory, helping him charge back toward the next transformation faster. So what kind of role is Feainon really filling here? At first glance, you might think he's just another physical DPS. But honestly, he plays more like a full battlefield reset button. For people who like units that feel like they take over the game when activated, this is your guy. But he's not without risks. He clears the field of your allies during his transformation, so if enemies have effects that scale based on ally presence, or if buffs need allies to be on field, you might run into issues. That said, the fact that all enemies gain physical weakness means he always has a guaranteed weakness break, and with enough SPD or action order control, he could be pretty self-sufficient. That's it for the full kit breakdown on Feainon. I'll keep updating this as more values get finalized, but from what we've seen so far, he's shaping up to be one of the most dynamic and tactical units in the game. Do you think Feainon is going to be a must-pull, or are you saving for someone else? Let me know, and if this breakdown helped you out, you know what to do. Save up to 25% on the current banners at lootbar.gg. All you need is your UID and server. The link is in the description.